So, next we will move into the second part, external storage. Okay. So, most Android devices have a limited internal memory. So, we often use the external storage for saving the data. External storage is accessible to all the applications and the users, and you can even view these files by connecting your device to the computer. Okay. So, however, to access the external storage, your applications must have a read external storage permission. So, that is very important. In Android, we need to request the permissions from the user before reading or writing the files to the external storage. Okay. So, here so this code first checks if the storage permissions. Okay. See, so this is the storage permissions, read external storage and write external storage are already granted. Okay. If not, it requires them from the user using this request permission method. Okay. Then in the on request permission result function, the applications verifies whether the user granted or denied the permission. So, and display the toast message accordingly. Okay. Finally, so these permissions must also be declared in the Android manifest.xml file. Okay. So, this ensure your applications can safely and securely access the external storage when needed. Okay. So, when is it appropriate to use the external storage? Okay. So, use it if your data needs to be shared across the applications or your files are large. For example, videos, images or documents. Okay. The external storages also follows your data to persist even after the application is uninstalled. Okay. So, next we will move into the third type, that is shared preference. Here, if you only need to store the small amount of the data, you can use shared preferences. Okay. Shared preferences store the data in the key value format. That means you assign the key and the corresponding value is saved under it. So, this is an ideal for saving the user settings, login details or preferences like the theme mode. Okay. So, here you should use the shared preferences when your data is tiny and the private one. Okay. So, generally, so less than 100 kilobytes. Okay. So, keep in mind that shared preferences are deleted when the application is uninstalled. Okay. So, one of the most interesting data storage options Android provides its users is shared preferences. Okay. Shared preferences is a way in which one can store and retrieve the small amount of the primitive data as the key and value pair to the file on the device storage, such as a string, int, a float or boolean. So, that make up your preferences in an XML file inside the applications on the device storage. Okay. So, shared preferences can be thought of as a dictionary or a key and value pair. For example, so you may have a key being the username, and for the value you may have a store the user's username. Okay. So, and then you could retrieve that by its a key. So, here the username. Okay. So, now you can have a simple shared preferences application interfaces that you can use it to store the preferences and pull them back as when needed. Okay. So, the shared preferences class provides a API for reading, writing and managing this data. Shared preferences are the suitable for the different situations. For example, when the user's settings need to be saved or to store the data that can be used in the different activities within the applications. Okay. As you know, on pass method will always be called before your activity is placed in the background or destroyed. So, for the data to be saved persistently, it's preferred to save it in on pass method, which could be restored in the method of on create of the activity. Okay. So, data stored using the shared preferences are kept private within the scope of the applications. However, the shared preferences are different from the activity instance state. A sample GIF is given below to get an idea about what we are going to do in this session. Okay. So, next we will move into section of how to create the shared preferences. Okay. So, here the first thing we need to do is to create one shared preferences file per applications. So, name it with the package name of your applications. Okay. So, this will be then unique and easy to associate with your applications. So, when you want to get the values, call the get shared preference method. Shared preferences provide the modes of storing the data. It may be a private mode or the public mode. Okay. So, it is for the backend compatibility. Use only the mode of private to be the secure one. Okay. So, we will look at the steps to implement the shared preferences in Android. Okay. So, the first step is about, so we have to start by creating the new Android project in the Android Studio as usual. Okay. So, next we can use either the Java or Kotlin to write our code. Okay. So, here we have used the Kotlin language for writing the code. Okay. So, second step is about design your application's interface inside the activity main XML file. Okay. So, here we will add two edit text fields. Okay. So, this will store and retain the data entered by the user. Okay. So, this is similar to what you see in the applications with the forms. So, where your information stays saved even after closing the applications. Okay. So, next third step. So, here what we are doing, open the main activity file. Okay. So, here you will write the code to save and retrieve the data using the shared preferences. Okay. So, this allows the data entered in the edit text fields to be saved locally and automatically restored when you reopen the applications. Okay. In short, the shared preferences is a simple and powerful way to store the small piece of user data like the form inputs or settings. Okay. So, the users don't need to enter them again each time they use your applications. Okay. Then fourth section is about Android databases. When your applications deals with the structured or larger data, using the database is the best option. Okay. In Android applications development, a database plays a vital role when it comes to storing, managing and retrieving the data in an organized way. Okay. So, a database is perfect when your applications needs to store, retrieve and manipulate the structured data efficiently. Okay. See, for example, we can consider the user profiles, transaction history or messages. Okay. So, these kind of the data will be stored in the larger databases. Okay. So, unlike the temporary storage options, the databases are used when you need your data to be stored permanently and available even after the application is closed or the device is restarted. Okay. So, the most commonly used database system in the Android is SQLite. Okay. So, SQLite is a lightweight, fast and efficient database engine that comes built into the Android operating system. Okay. So, this means you don't need to install or configure anything separately. You can start using it right away in your applications. Okay. So, SQLite allows the developers to perform all the basic database operations such as inserting the record, updating the existing data or deleting the unwanted entries and querying the database to read and display the informations. Okay. So, these operations are carried out using the simple SQL commands. So, which make it easy to communicate with the databases. Okay. So, let us understand why the databases are useful in the Android applications. Okay. So, if your applications needs to handle the structured or larger amount of the data such as storing the user informations, login credential details, chatting messages or the product list, then the database is the best option. Okay. So, unlike the shared preferences or the files, so which are ideal for smaller piece of the data, a database allows you to organize the data efficiently and access it quickly whenever needed. Okay. So, in Android, working with the SQLite typically involves creating the helper class that extends a SQLite open helper. Okay. So, this class manages the database creations and the version management for your applications. Okay. So, using the methods on create and on upgrade, you can define the structure of your tables and how the databases behaves when the application is updated. Okay. So, once the database is set up, you can use the SQL queries or Android built-in application interface to insert, read, update and delete the data. Okay. So, we can even display this data in user interface elements like recycle views or list views, or providing the users with the dynamic and the data driven experience. Okay. In summary, the Android database powered by the SQLite is a reliable way to handle the data that needs to be stored permanently and managed efficiently. Okay. So, it is a perfect for the applications that deal with structured, user generated or frequently changed data. Okay. So, by using the SQLite, the developers can build the powerful data rich applications while keeping the performance and simplicity in the mind. Okay. To sum up, the Android offers a multiple storage options. Okay. So, first is use the internal storage for storing the private application data. Then we have use external storage for large or shared files. Then use the shared preferences for smaller key value pair, and use the databases for structured, organized data, and each storage system has its own purpose. Okay. So, choose one that fits your application that data needs the best. Okay. So, thanks for watching. See you in the next section. Happy learning.